Welcome to Debt to Cinema. I'm Stephen Mominex.
And I'm Brian Gillis. Like most people, we love going to the theater and catching the latest releases. However, it can sadly put a big dent in your wallet.
Fortunately, living in the digital age makes the viewing possibilities endless from the comforts of home.
Many of these films that you can see right from your couch, we're ashamed to say we missed, despite labeling ourselves cinephiles.
So join us as one or both of us cross off a title from our list of shame.
It can be an all-time essential classic,
or an underrated piece of cinema that's worth giving a shot.
Hell, it might just be some trashy film we want the other's opinion on. So sit tight and join us as we pay off our debts, $1 at a time.
Motion picture critics around the world acclaim America's newest film triumph. Listen to the London Times. Few films in recent years have received more critical acclaim, and Shadows deserves it. Again and again, the raves repeat their acclamation.
Please don't touch me. Please don't touch me. I want to go home.
And the Daily Mirror describes Lelia Goldoni's performance as blazingly brilliant. And the Daily Express says this: the most truthful love scene you have ever seen. Shadows, directed by John Cassavetes, breaks all the barriers of conventional filmmaking. Actually filmed in New York City, Shadows now returns to be hailed by American critics. For this is a real story of real people living in the shadows of the neon-crazy streets of Manhattan.
You may remember a year ago we did the Dirty Dozen, and in that I did say something about John Cassavetes, that I had not seen one of his flicks, and he was a highlight in that flick, and coincidentally it just happens to be a year, but really what it was is that at work, practically every day, I keep walking by this poster for Faces, and I was talking with somebody that I work that has seen more movies than I have, and I brought up John Cassavetes. I said, I have not seen anything, where should I start? And
start at the beginning.
Just said start at the beginning. And so, fuck it, here we are. I watched this movie last week, actually.
Group outing, theater thing?
No, just on my own. I just rented it, and that's how I was going to do it. And then, when it came time for me to pick something, I was like, fuck, I don't have anything, but this movie is just way too interesting. Like, I feel like the conversation alone is justified just based on how this movie was made or what this movie is, that I was like, yeah, I'm not going to pass this up. So yeah, here we are. You finally caught up. So what'd you think?
Yeah, I also had never seen a John Cassavetes film. I do kind of recall the Suicide Squad character, just because, all the characters in The Dirty Dozen are pretty interesting, but his especially...
He's the most fun.
There isn't a film of his that I'm familiar by name, I guess Shadows now. I'm vaguely familiar with Nick Cassavetes, his son, but then also not really. It's like kind of one of those, oh, he was on Entourage for a couple episodes. I know who he is. But even still, I wasn't familiar with what John Cassavetes did, not just for American cinema, but independent cinema at that, or really anything. And then this film also, in doing research, is a bit of a misnomer. It's kind of like an urban legend. This is kind of claimed to be, not just the origin of independent cinema, which it definitely is, but the beginning of mumblecore, which it definitely is not.
In a way, though, because you just can't help but think about it. Mark Duplass has talked about Cassavetes before. Apatow has talked about Cassavetes. They famously use improv. The way that mumblecore works is that they have a guideline for what the scene is, and yet their actors know what they're going to do. So there's still a lot of that in there. But yeah, this is the main inspiration that I could find. There's so many things that's actually amazing about this. Is it still shocks me. This is 1957 New York.
Yeah.
Fucking North by Northwest was made 2 years after this, and that's an idealized looking version of what New York is. But no, these are this is actually on the streets. This looks like New Hollywood. It's amazing that I could have sworn this was the 70s while I was watching it, or maybe late 60s, but no.
Mid 60s.
57? Wow.
Just the clothes and the music and what they're doing for entertainment and stuff. But there is a lot of, there's chain smoking and basically loose sex partners and bohemian lifestyle, something that would look a lot different in the 60s or especially in the 70s, even if the people are basically the same. But when it comes down to, this was made for $40,000 at the time, which was still probably a lot of money. Excuse me, my cat is running all over the place right now. He watched it with me. He slept through it. I almost did too. And that seems to be the case with the original print because, like I said, this isn't exactly mumblecore. There was the original, improvised film that almost no one's seen because he like invited people to like this 900-seat cinemaplex or something, or movie house, and no one went. It was like maybe 100 people, and people left, even like the casting director and stuff. And so it has this very weird like stance in American filmmaking. It only really became...
We got like a weird mesh of two. Is like the one that's out there. I know, like
the Criterion version.
Yeah, it's like when you I sifted through some of the bonus features, and the woman that plays Lelia, I forget her last name, but that's her real first name in real life. Like, you know, she talked about what made it in the movie and what the reshoots that they had to do 2 years later, and what's like, in the movies. That some of the scenes are. Some of them are improvised, and then some of them were written. Like, you know, the after sex scene that was written, but then, you know, there's stuff in there that's improvised. So it's like I can't find something online that like definitively says whether they were both meshed together at some point.
They're definitely
and there's so many conflicting statements that I'm just like I don't know what to believe as far as what I'm reading.
From what I read on IMDb and Wikipedia, which are both, you know, not official source materials, they are written by people like us. It could be fake, it could be not. But just given the way that the Wikipedia article read, and also, you know, there's citations, so I didn't check them myself, but you can easily do that. But from what I gather, there was the original version that no one liked. It was overly long. The romance, especially the interracial romance, was like really stressed. That was like the point of it, and it just didn't play well, despite being like 90 some odd minutes long. And then a couple years later, you know, they worked it, they redid the thing, and they basically took that material, they like reshot half of it, and then they chopped like the original parts to pieces, because John Cassavetes, besides being, you know, the producer, the writer, the director, is also the editor, and he has a cameo with his wife. So, which I didn't catch, but I would have to assume is at the big party where not Bruno, where, what's his name, slaps that woman who's trying to come on to him. Ben, yeah, because, Benny. Because the setup for the film and the title alone is kind of a strange one, Shadows. Like, I'm not sure exactly where that's supposed to be coming from.
What I'm thinking is, like, of the time, too, I think it's more of, like, just, you know, the things
like a derogatory term?
Not necessarily derogatory, but just more like, you know, underneath the surface. Like, all the stuff that you see, it's sort of like there's that forbidden feel maybe of the time and context, but
I think it has more to do...
That's the best I can get out of it.
With the light-skinned, dark-skinned dichotomy you have here, because you have that real powerful sequence where, you know, Lilia... She's not exactly sure what she's doing. She's 20. She's running around. She has her like real smart, artsy, like beatnik friend, and then she meets this new guy, and the first thing she does is kiss him at the party, and right away he's gonna think a certain thing. And of course he thinks that thing, and that's why she ends up going home with him. And you quickly realize, as soon as we do, post-sex, that it was her first time. It was painful.
Yeah.
He did things to her that, you know, he probably shouldn't have. And that's also...
Just that whole relationship in general, like the way that plays out is at first you're thinking, wow, this is kind of cute how they're running through the park, running away from this professor. It's like, this is going to go really well. And then he's like, you know, I can be very romantic, but I'm not a very good guy. Hey, why don't you come up to my place? And then the drums kick in, and all of a sudden it's like, fuck, you are afraid for her.
Even better than that, though, is the fact that on the walk, they ended up at his place, and he's like, oh, it's right here. It's number 7. You wanna do it?
Yeah,
you wanna do it? You want a drink? She's like, I don't need a drink. You sure you don't want a drink? You want a drink? But he wasn't a bad guy. What it really is he looked at her, and especially on black and white 16 millimeter, she looks very much so not
she
black.
She is light-skinned.
She's very light-skinned. She's fair-skinned. She's passes for white. When she knows her, he knows Benny. But then when he meets Hugh, the super dark-skinned sibling, he's like, oh, shit. And then that's when you can tell it's totally improvised. Because that scene in particular, even though it's such a pivotal one, just doesn't flow well. Like, it's so awkward in, like, not a artful way. It was more
think so?
Yeah.
I mean,
the way he literally gets pushed out.
It's perfectly paced.
The confrontation.
It's such a fucking good moment. Like, it's a very tense moment that, like, it never dragged for me or anything.
Oh,
they were all really into it.
Not in terms of being, like, dragging or pacing issues, but just... It didn't seem natural in the way that the camera was in the situation. Like, you're on the outside of the doorway, and for some reason, like, you assume, especially just because of the interracial romance that is going on, that he is embarrassed. And then you get, like, a scene later on when he reappears where he basically says that, you know, like, oh, it doesn't matter, we're the same.
Yeah, he really has
I love
had time
you.
to think it over.
Yeah, and
I got just so used to how all over the place the camera was in this that I kind of stopped focusing on that and I focused more on performance. But yeah, that moment,
it's weird.
When Hugh comes in for the first time, awkward as shit, uncomfortable
Well, the
as hell,
framing,
but
too, like,
so
it's-
freaking well performed though. Like that, I wasn't really thinking about the framing.
It's over the shoulder of this this lover, whatever his name is, Ray or whatever. Tony. And then you see, you know, this brother literally embracing his sister, and he's like, "Wait, hold up, you're black?" Like you notice that moment. Like I think maybe it's awkward on purpose. Like you can sense the tension, even though there shouldn't be one. And for us, it really isn't, just because, you know, there's so many more versions of this film. Many that I've seen. You know, you got Spike Lee's Jungle Fever, you've got Ali, Furious of Soul by Fassbinder, you got the inspiration for that, the Douglas Sirk movie.
There's a lot of stuff, but yeah, I mean, just the moment that it happens here, because it's not something that you expect, I think, just dramatically, like, especially where that relationship is too, it's very weird because everything with Tony, you know, at like post sex, like, you know, he's just constantly going like, you know, oh, it won't be that bad next time. Oh, we'll stay together. And she's just trying to talk her way out of it.
Well, not really though, because at first she's still buying into it. She literally asks, you know, like, can I live with you? Like, did you have a good time? Like, she's smitten by him. It's the first time that she's gone all the way, despite being 20. And that's kind of old when you have two brothers that are artists. Like, one who's been on the art scene for like 10 years. And you never see parents here. So that would mean that since she was 10, she was assumably living with her brother, who's throwing parties like this. Like, it's almost laughable that she hasn't, especially in this era. But then again, I guess it is this era. But
and also, you know, the shocking thing about this era, and I read this on trivia, but it makes sense. It's just, you laugh at it, that people were just horrified by that scene. That's like, how could she, like, she's not even married. How could they have sex?
Well, I mean, the same thing happens in North by Northwest, though. Like, is it and that scene really isn't that bad because they don't even kiss in it. You know, at least in like Hitchcockian films.
But, I mean, you know, it's implied. Like, if you're naive enough, that could go over your head. Here, it's clear cut.
No, well, I'm just saying, like, kissing scenes were a big thing at this time in filmmaking, especially commercial, mainstream Hollywood
they'd been
films,
doing it
studio
for years
films.
at that point, though. Like, it was that 3-second rule, and it.
Well, even before the
I'm sure they were
3-second
used
rule,
to it by this point.
But there's some films where, like, even though they're doing the 3 seconds, they'll do like 2 seconds off, 2 seconds on, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, where it adds up to like a literal like minute kiss and like super passionate. And kissing on screen is much more intimate than like a post-coital conversation, especially when they're shot from like the neck up and it's in the dark. And I guess it has more to do with the subject matter, like that they are literally talking exactly about sex. Like, it's not alluded to, but it is it's very explicit, and that might be the issue. But then on the flip of the coin, you have like the almost Marty-esque conversation that happens later in the film, because Benny, you know, he's just a ladies' man with his friends. All they do is get drunk and do like random shit, call up girls, try to pick up them, and like it even ends on a literal Marty note where he goes, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, what's the point? I'm gonna leave now. And he walks the street and he's like, maybe I'm supposed to have like this a moment where I'm like, oh, I've come to my senses. He's like, well, I did come to my senses.
Yeah, and then later on they just say, yeah, just forget about it. He's like, fine, I'll forget about it. I'm pretty sure with just how that ends up that he's gonna keep doing his thing. And
I don't think so. I don't think Benny will. Because, you know, he doesn't. He has this moment when Tony comes and calls for his sister, which is like she turns into like the shittiest person in this movie. She starts off like real cute and innocent. It's like her brother.
Just that date in general with
the final
Davy
date,
Jones,
David,
where he just comes in right away. She's just like, "What? You didn't bring me any flowers? Like, how do you expect me to go out with you if you're not going to bring me flowers? Hey, don't interrupt my brother. Do I come in and disturb your relatives?" And then. It's funny how far it goes, and they're all just laughing about it, of how they're all being assholes. But yeah, it was fun.
But she starts off literally like visiting her brother at work, and he tells her, "Don't you read the newspapers? You can't walk home alone. Like, let me get you a cab. Let me walk with you." Like, "Oh no, it's fine. I lived here my whole life." He's like, "No, it's not fine. Read the news."
Right away, she's almost attacked by a guy.
She has when she's looking at that Brigitte Bardot poster, which, you know, one of the first big sex icons, and like she's molested. Like, someone does grope her in public, and you have like the box officer at that theater not even paying attention, and his friends like, "Hey, leave her alone. It's fine." And it's just strange, like her arc here, how she literally goes from this innocent girl who's just kind of like the side person at the party, the sister of this more famous person, the hipper people. And then she eventually, especially towards the end, when she meets David at this party, is like the one to talk to, the one that you want to flirt with, the one that you will wait literally 2.5 hours to even go dancing with. And then when you're dancing with her, she's just ridiculing you, laughing at you, like doing all the wrong things because she can, because she knows how to use her body now. It's already been used. Like she's lost her innocence. Like it's interesting having this, even though they're all from the same generation, just having this triple layered interconnected nature of these siblings. The one who's literally coming of age throughout the runtime, one who's coming into adulthood from adolescence, and then the final one who's just, Hugh is the one that's trying to make something of himself. You have like his first sequence when it's not really made clear, especially because of the differing tones of their skin, where it's like, why is this Benny guy that I just met asking this other guy who happens to also be black for money? Like, it's not made clear, because he's like, hey brother, but like it almost, you have to remember this is the 50s, not the 60s. Like, that's not lingo yet. And yeah, you get that sequence where it's like, I'm on opening third billing, even though I've been doing this for 10 years for this group of girls that can't even sing. Like it, and then that coalesces with the final sequence at the train station, like probably one of the better sequences in the film, where he's like, "You're the best manager in the world." Like he gives like the manager's supposed to give the pep talk.
It's a very neatly tied up happy ending, really. Which even then, I'm like, it's one of those things where even with Benny, I'm not so sure that that things are going to be perfect. It's like at the train station, it's well intentioned, but then again, it's the idea of this being improvised, or maybe that it just could be one of those moments where you're, with them at the bar, they're just like, yeah, you know what, we're going to do it, where things are going to be good, and then you just never really follow through on things. You're just right back to where you started. You keep doing exactly what you were doing before. I don't know, I feel like maybe with Lelia, it's weird, because I'm not so sure if I want to kind of believe that it might be that cliche where, he happened to be the one, Davy Jones, the one that she would fall in love with. I mean, she was literally told at a party earlier, no, what you need is you need a husband, and you need to have kids, and you need to settle down. And, I maybe it seemed like her life was going down that route. But, with the brothers, I'm not so sure, because there really isn't anything in their actions that proves that they were going anywhere on any journey. They're kind of like, Lelia was talking about this story that she was writing, that she was being criticized for, of like, it's really like nothing except just someone goes through some pain, and yet they're still smiling and going down because they know exactly who they are. That might be, I think that's more true for the brothers, because she's definitely a different person from where she was at the beginning of the movie. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe she is talking about herself, and she's just so fucking cocky and confident that she could treat Davy Jones like shit at the party, and that, it's like there really isn't that much of a change other than she had sex for the first time. What I'm doing right now is an improvisation. It's weird. It is kind of a convoluted mess, really. It's kind of just a slice of life, just a brief period of like a week or so
2 weeks,
in their lives. Like there really isn't a story.
It's
there
very
are
much
moments that
in
are pivotal.
The mode of Joe Swanberg or the Duplass brothers, or like so many other filmmakers that either were contemporaries or have since been inspired by this kind of filmmaking, where it isn't, it doesn't have a pretty bow on it. It wasn't adapted from a famous book or play or anything. This isn't getting a TV show. This isn't gonna be the talk of the town, the thing you have to see. This is very much so the kind of midnight movie. This is the kind of film that would play for months and months, and lots of people would go to. Or if, it's not that way then, it's definitely that way now. And I'm sure that this film still does run, not just because it's inspired the kind of films that speak to people in a way that commercial films don't, especially nowadays. We have the exceptions of something like The Big Sick, but outside of, that kind of film, which is, mind you, made by Judd Apatow, or helped made by Judd Apatow.
I mean, it's not that different from stuff that he's done. It's just that there are enough things about it that are refreshing, that feel new, and that I'm amazed that a lot of people are embracing, which Thank God they are, man. That movie's fucking great. But I mean, yeah, with this, this is like such a major game changer, just in that, it's not the beginning of New Hollywood, but you wouldn't really have that if it weren't for this. If people didn't see this and go, wait, that counts as a movie? That is possible? You can do that? I mean, so many people, influenced by it then, even now to this day, it's just, I mean, it's funny. Like I keep thinking like, just not only like things in my life, but I think that this there's that moment when they're in the park and they're looking at sculptures and everything, and I forget his name, Dennis, I think, where he's just going like, yeah, I went to college, you know what, and all that professors did was just try to teach me something that they didn't know.
People
and, like,
that
other guys going,
couldn't
like,
make it.
just going like, what the hell do you think's the point of this? It's like, do you even understand it? Well, it's not a question of understanding it, man. It's just if you feel it, you feel it. So
I want to put that
which
on a t-shirt.
it's funny, like just thinking about art in general. Like, this is sort of a movie that's critical of what was basically just the norm in standard narrative filmmaking then, and yet I think I'm probably projecting this on there, but you also just get that audience experience kind of projected on there of someone who cannot necessarily articulate why they like something, but they're just like, I like it, shut up, leave me alone. Which I think we're all guilty of that. Like, I'm fucking guilty of that on this podcast, where there's episodes I'm just like, I don't know how the fuck to say I love this movie other than I love it.
Like, this film is very meta, between showing both the performer and the audience in a showbiz industry. When you have that nightclub sequence, also they have a practice. Like we mentioned, the Brigitte Bardot marquee, going to Times Square, mind you. The museum that they visit, the art parties they're at, the coffee shops, the cocktail lounges, like all the things. And this is someone who wants to be a writer, someone who is like a failed...
Well, wants to be a writer, evidently is pushed into being a writer.
Well, a writer, a trumpetist, and then also a singer. You have a series of people and then their friends. Like, it is a very artsy film. Like, this is definitive beatnik era cultural importance right here, where I'm sure at the time perhaps they would have not liked it because their their counterculture was being shown in cinemas, but then it's fine because the person at least that was filming it was also part of that category or subcategory. So yeah, maybe it is Shadows, like you said, because this is an underground world and it's not something that you like the light directly hits. But I think it maybe it works on more levels than that. I think it has something to do with the racial undertones.
Oh yeah, no, it's a vague one-word title that the movie never even mentions. You can definitely read a lot into it. It's not necessarily just one thing, but it's I don't think I can try to like peg this movie in one way. Like there's so many, it's a convoluted conversation where I'm sorry, like, as cheesy as that joke was about this talk being an improvisation, it's like, yeah, it is, because there's a lot here for me to say, but I think on principle, I love what this movie proved to be possible of what we got later on. And like, even if it can be heavy, like, there's a lot of great improv moments here that just are a lot of fun and are really funny, when they're discussing, like, man, I don't want to introduce that line. It's like, hey man, so just tell a joke. Did you ever hear the one about, the rabbit that fell from the tree because he said that, man, that love making's for the birds. There's a lot of fun stuff like that. When Davy Jones like shows up and he's just trying to like butt into a conversation, and fucking Lelia just keeps getting in the way for 2.5 hours. There's a lot of good camaraderie between Benny and his buds. There
are fun moments. Like, it's an interesting look into the world of underground Brooklynites in the mid to late 50s.
Yeah, it's just like, even as a time capsule, like, this is amazing. I had no idea that that era could look like this.
I understand why this film's important. It is 100% a silver dollar. But I already mentioned it. Like, Marty came out 2 years before this film was ever even made. It was filmed in the same locales. It features mostly characters of the same like underground culture, except it's more prominent because, hey, it was filmed for a mainstream audience. It was made at a major studio, and also it won Best Picture. It is the pivotal mid-50s young adult film. And like I said, this film, at least in Benny's story, ends exactly the way Marty ends. And, that's the reason why people love Marty. That's the reason why Ernest Borgnine became such a big actor, because he was able to embody this person or these people out there that didn't want to hook up and fool around and get drunk and have a good time, well, were instead looking for someone to settle down with. They wanted the person to be home with them, not people to go home with. And, that one is a buy. Like, Marty's a definite buy because it has polish on it, that it's more than just a piece of cinema. It's a movie. And I think that this is more a cinematic experiment that definitely pays off, but it's a silver dollar for me, just because I don't know if I'd rewatch this one, despite, its importance, like I said, and it's not a bad movie, but I'm sure there's more to gain from watching more of John Cassavetes' works, which I'm sure I will do in the future. But, this one's on YouTube. You can stream it for free, even if it's not part of public domain, which it might be.
Is that how you watched it?
It's exactly how I watched it. But yeah, I recommend this one. It's an interesting snapshot in the same way that it was recommended to you. But I don't think I can give it the dollar mark. It's a silver dollar.
I think it is $1 for me, but mainly for filmmaking reasons. Like, it was a lot of fun, which I did not expect that. It's a major stepping stone in independent filmmaking, and when the improv is working, for me, it's just fucking electric. Like, I really couldn't believe that this is the 50s. Like, I had to remind myself later, and I find that it's a buy. Like, I would watch this again probably when I need inspiration, just to remind me that I'm not making shit, or that I might be making some right decisions, or just that I could probably try cleaning something up if something's a mess. Like, if Criterion does a sale and I got money for it, I would buy the Cassavetes set right now, just so that I could have the others on the back burner, but I would at least be satisfied with having this. I mean, yeah, hell yeah, it is a buy.
It's funny, considering this is the beginning of the American independent film movement, but it's also the beginning of the Kickstarter funded film.
Yes.
Apparently Cassavetes was doing some kind of radio show, and he told the audience, I'd make my first movie if people just like our listeners sent money, and they ended up sending him $1,000,
$2,000.
Yeah, that's fucking ludicrous. Literally, it created the Kickstarter independent film.
Mm-hmm.
It created independent film. It's an important document in the cinematic experience and the cinematic journey, especially in Americana. But yeah, I mean, despite having so many things going for it, it's I don't know. When I buy something, I think I buy it not necessarily for myself, but for others. And I just don't see that widespread appeal for this film unless you are a film aficionado. If you are a student of cinema, I just don't think that its relevance in the creation of a different era of filmmaking makes it a must-see.
It's funny because when you get to ratings, it's kind of stupid, because I could say the same exact thing of something in a future review and then just say silver dollar. But man, who cares how you understand it? When you feel it, you feel it, and that's really it.
Thanks for listening. We hope it's been a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen to more by checking out the Dollar Reviews Show, where we cover theatrical and streaming releases, as well as give our 2 cents on anything we sought out on our own, whether that be TV, music, etc.
You can find all of our content at dollarreviews.net. Follow us on Twitter, or like us on Facebook at Dollar Reviews.
And we're also on Google Play Music, iTunes, Pocket Cast, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, just about anywhere on the internet, with hours of content available to you for free. But for those of you that feel that the show is worth your dollar, you can send us a donation at patreon.com/dollarreviews. Contributions not only earn our undying love, but they also make it possible for us to improve our recording equipment and to give you the highest quality episodes possible. But more importantly, they'd be helping us acquire the content to review. Trips to the multiplex are expensive, and the more donations we receive, the more films we can review for your listening pleasure.
If you listen somewhere we're currently not available, you'd like to contribute some talking points, send a Death to Cinema request, or if you just want to laugh at us, you can do so by reaching out to us on social media or send an email to brian@dollarreviews.net.
Or you can email me as well, steve@dollarreviews.net.
You can follow me personally on Twitter at Brian Gillis, that's BRYONGILLIS, and now you know how to spell the email too, and also under the same name on the lovely site Letterboxd, which acts as my film diary, where I rate films that I'm watching, write the occasional review, and even sometimes compile lists.
You can also find me on Twitter at S_MTX, and also follow my film diary at Letterboxd under the same name, where I log everything I watch, and sometimes write brief reviews.
That's it for this week. Until next time, keep the change.